Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to DIA. My name is Matilde Guidaglia. I'm a curator here, and I am so pleased to welcome Layli Long Soldier today here. I had the pleasure to work with Duane Linklater, Tanya, Lukin Linklater, Layli, and a number of collaborators on the exhibition that is on view in the galleries. And I think Layli and I met in person in Santa Fe, or in Albuquerque, actually, a year and a half ago, as Duane was starting to really think about the protagonist of the exhibition being the buffalo and its typical behaviors and future rebounding. And it is through conversation with Layli, too, that the focus of the exhibition came into being. And in the brochure for the exhibition, you might have noticed that Layli contributed a beautiful essay, "I Want to See My Relatives Close Up." And Layli writes that the grandeur of buffalo stops her soul and provokes sentiments of reverence and closeness, but that to encounter the animal is a rare occurrence, precluded by governmental measures that have decimated and confined the buffalo over the centuries. And today, Layli will present a talk on buffalo hide painting and the exquisite endurance of collective memory. And so, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Layli Long Soldier.
So I wanted to say, first of all, wow, hello. It's so nice. I didn't know if we would have three people, if it would just be you and me, Matilda. I didn't know. But it's so nice to see friends and to see new faces. Thank you for being here. Thank you to Duane and Tanya for the invitation to participate. So I am here because of Duane's exhibit. Most of the time when I travel and visit places, it's to read my own work. I write. So generally as a poet, that's why I do public sort of appearances. But this time I'm not reading my work. I'm just sharing some things about work that I admire, and some people from my community. So that makes me happy. It's cool. It's different. I love it. So Duane invited me to, when he was sort of thinking about what to do for programming, he invited me to basically present anything I wanted in relation to the subject of the show. So I really thought about it. It was so open, it was hard for me to decide. But I finally decided on buffalo hide painting because just selfishly, it's a form of artwork that I love very much. So I don't have the word exactly to describe what I feel when I'm in the presence of a buffalo hide painting. But you said grandeur. Grandeur is a good one. My soul stops. Yeah, that's another way to say it. And it's been hard for me to really figure out why I have that response. But I have it in response to almost anyone's hide painting. And I think part of it has to do also, when I'm in front of it, it has to do with the life of the buffalo itself, but also with the history that art form carries with it. So I am going to share. Secondly, I want you to know I'm not an expert. So I'm not an expert on buffalo hide painting. I'm not coming and speaking in that manner. I didn't do a deep dive and do heavy research. I'm just sharing things from Sonya Holy Eagle, and Daniel is my dad. So he's in his 70s. He's been painting about 60 years. And he's done probably hundreds of buffalo hides. Sonya is one of his friends. She's also an elder. So I did the two of them as sort of contrast male and female perspective. And then Marty and Keith are younger Oglala artists. I selfishly put our flag symbol there. That's the Oglala flag. But I want to acknowledge that I'm going to share a few pieces from other artists who are not Oglala. And I want to say that connection to the buffalo extends from Canada all the way down to Texas and near Mexico. And that has to do with the buffalo migration pattern. So it was huge. I saw recently a post from a Native community in Texas. I'm sorry, I can't remember who it was, but they are rematriating buffalo into their community, into their land area. So that's all the way south to Texas. And then where I live in New Mexico, there's some pueblos in the area. I think it's Okeowinge Pueblo. They have buffalo dances. So it's really an integral part of many communities all the way north to south. So especially if you're in the northern plains, you will see a lot hide paintings everywhere. It's very common. And once you see them, you can't unsee them. So like these are just a few pictures I took walking around one day over the summer. Some hides you see in some stores in Rapid City. I have a deer hide. I put LOL, this is a deer hide. But that's at my, one of my friends, she has at Racing Magpie, they had that hanging. But you see hide paintings everywhere, up north especially. Oh, we're in New York, so that's west, yeah. Out west. You see hide paintings everywhere. But again, I think for me, I always respond to them with a sense of respect and joy. Again, no matter who the artist is, I usually really appreciate them, or I'll take a moment. Okay, so I'm just sharing a few examples before we get into the interviews and so on of the ways that, you see them in public spaces, you see them in schools, you see them, all over. So here is, I want to say up and coming, but she's been designing for a long time. But Lauren Goodday, she's a designer. She's in like fashion. But I saw she posted these like recently on Facebook, for old people like me, I guess. But she recently made this really beautiful buffalo robe. She did a hide painting on the robe. And I just wanted to share that to say that this practice is something that is our people do now. It's very contemporary. It's something that we can find in the fashion world, but we can also, it's also very old, so. Oh, I forgot. Okay, this was my interpretation of a buffalo robe. This is a piece, and I'm just sharing this maybe to weave this connection throughout its expressions in different ways. So this is a piece I made, when was it? Yeah, it might have been 2012, 20, something like that. But anyway, some years ago, my interpretation of a buffalo robe, my own buffalo robe, and it was so funny when I brought that up to the Heritage Center in South Dakota. The girl at the front asked me, "What is this?" I said, "Oh, it's the buffalo robe." And she was like, "That doesn't look like a buffalo robe." She was very skeptical. I was like, loosely speaking. Well, anywho, I made this piece. I tend to, when I work visually, I often work with really accessible materials. At the time, I used to live way out in the country, and there were no art supply stores or anything, so the closest I had was Ace Hardware. So this is made out of window screen, things I could buy at the hardware store. So I have black window screen, which is, what is that material? I don't know. Black window screen, and then the silver is aluminum. I think aluminum and so on. So the reason I'm sharing this is it was for a show called Pete Oyate. So that is what how we refer to buffalo, Pete Oyate, which translates basically to Buffalo Nation. That is one thing to understand. Okay, I'm always cautious, like sharing things about our language and culture, because every time I say something, then some Lakota person will come and they have the opposite thing to say. So I offer this cautiously to say, there was a language teacher that I was listening to, and he was saying that in our language, our older language, we did not have a word for animal. So we did not refer to animals as like one word. We referred to them by their nations. We understood them as nations. So you would say Buffalo Nation, Horse Nation, Elk Nation, and so on. And it is with that understanding we treat them and view them as relatives with their own communities, their own sovereignty, their own identities, their own cultures. So Buffalo are Buffalo relatives, the Buffalo Nation. They have their own customs, they have their own language, they have their own food ways, they have their own rhythm and pace of life, and so on, if that makes sense. Right? So we understand all of creation basically in that way. And I'm not trying to get super mystical on you, but it is true. It is a part of our sort of philosophy, this idea of how to be in relation and to treat each other as relatives. So in the center of that dress, can you see there's like little strips of paper hanging down, and I call that the spine of this figure. And in that spine, on each strip, I put family names you'll find in our community with the word bull in them. So if you have any friends who are from the Northern Plains or you visited, you'll see a lot of names with the word bull in them. That's referring to the buffalo bull, not like the cow or the, I don't know, beef or whatever. It would be our, and that represents, again, a very old relationship and connection, and to the buffalo and the names that we carried, the names that our ancestors carried, but we still carry them today. So we, just like there's Long Soldier, there's also, you guys recognize Sitting Bull, of course, right? Bowman is my grandma's family name. Mabel Bowman, Black Bull, Left Hand Bull, Jumping Bull, 3 bulls, Short Bull, Crazy Bull, 2 bulls, Bull Child, Medicine Bull, brown bull, thunder bull, bull chief, tall bull, wallowing bull, red bull. Oh, you guys recognize that, right? Yellow bull, a spotted bull, bad heart bull, plain bull, bull bear, white bull, and eagle bull. What was really fun about doing this project was in order to collect this list of names, I had to call up different like relatives and friends, and I was asking for their help to compile this list. And so every time I would talk to someone on the phone, they would share different stories that they knew about how people got their names or about those families, sometimes even a little gossip, you know. But that was the most rewarding part of the whole project, was, again, creating those relations and sharing stories and remembering who we are together. Also, the list was much longer. That's all I could fit inside that dress. Okay, I wrote a book titled Whereas. In the front of the book, the first poem I have in the book says, "Now make room in the mouth for the grasses, grasses, grasses." There have been people, I've seen them sort of write about this opening and give their opinions on how I opened the book. A lot of times they have a very dark or ominous kind of reading of that piece about the grass in the mouth. But actually, it came from this project, this piece. On the back of that buffalo robe, inside each buffalo, there's text, and that's each of these stanzas is from one of those buffaloes. So I wrote in the top buffalo, "This is the book I've been meaning to write, an account of each family member, before me, after, to pronounce the names, sound out each letter, make a space in the mouth for the grasses, grasses, grasses." And then I took those last two lines and opened up my book with that. I mean, I changed it a little bit. But really it was sort of an homage and a sort of a nod towards family and, once again, our relationship to the land and to the buffalo. Yeah. Oh, you see this? This is so cute. I mean, you see buffalo hides everywhere. So, like, this is from an organization on Pine Ridge. They work with language and all kinds of things. And the other day I saw them, they posted this TikTok video, and that's their office. But it was like a funny video or something. But in the back, you can see the buffalo hide hanging in that office space. So it's just an example of how you see them everywhere. Here is another project I saw recently.
And Howe's work as the people who carried on history, who carried on Dakota aesthetic and design work. This idea of being here is really about potentiality, right? What hasn't been made yet, and even the idea of projecting on the hide rather than painting on it, rather than putting something permanent on it, reflects that transience. That actually brings us to Iyung'owi Hambade, or Paint Dreaming, which is the name of the video that's being projected onto the hide. And so this video is actually utilizing a combination of ancestral intelligence and synthetic intelligence instead of artificial, right? To take work of Oscar Howe and to train these different artificial intelligences, these different synthetic intelligences on these images, and insert in them ancestral knowledge, insert in them historical and contemporary images of Dakota art, and co-create along with this thing that we can now use as a tool to both talk to ancestors, right, in an active conversation of the modern and the ancient through this means of synthetic intelligence, through synthetic technology, which for me is super exciting and super cool.
At least this particular installation that she has, she's working with digital imagery and then projecting it onto the hides rather than using permanent marking or painting on the hides. And it sounded like she was projecting Oscar Howe, some imagery from Oscar Howe, which I love. And I will say that, I find especially outside of the Northern Plains, if anyone talks about Lakota, Dakota artists, Oscar Howe is usually the one that's talked about, especially in New York on the East Coast. And I love that. I love his work. At the same time, today is a moment when I wanted to honor those community members and our relatives who make work that are just at home and really make, I feel, inform who we are. And this has to do, we'll look at this a little bit, but again, this idea of the memory and the stories, the storytelling that we continue to carry forward. And we do it in different ways, as you've already seen. Okay, I'm going to share some work and a little bit of interview from one of my favorite hide painters, Sonya Holy Eagle. You're going to love her. She's so cute. I'm finding one of my notes. Okay, hold on. All right, this is Sonya, and I want you, when you go home, if you want to, you can go to Dakota Drum Company. Dakota Drum Company, that's her store. It's so cute. It's in Rapid City, South Dakota. And so she has been painting over 30 years, she said, around 35 years. She began painting somewhere in her adulthood. She said that she met her partner and her husband, and in her words, she said they were both. She was lonely and he was lonely. They got together and then they stayed together since then. It was so cute. Anyway, I wish it was that easy for me. Like God. Very sweet. But anyway, it was her partner that suggested one day that he wondered what if she would like to try this. And so I guess that's her beginning. So when that relationship began, her art practice also began. Her studio space, as you can see, this is in the back of her store, on the back end of it. It's very small. It's just a little tiny space. She just has a little chair there and a little tiny table with her brushes and her paints. By the way, this is how I interviewed everyone. I just basically asked them what their materials were. So that's all I wanted to know, is what materials they use for their hide painting, their process. And if they shared anything else, then I was very grateful. So some of them dropped some knowledge on me. Sonya dropped some knowledge, which was pretty cool. But that's really where I started, and that's all I was curious about to begin with. She said she uses a combination of brushes. A lot of them are maybe just from Michael's or Walmart. She said sometimes she gets those big packs of brushes from Walmart, but every now and then she has some special brushes. She was showing me kind of nicer brush. And you can see, God bless her, but I think she has like her arthritis, maybe. But this lady can crank it out. You should see her. We'll see her store. We'll see what she makes, and she works all day. This is all she does. So, yeah. Let me see where we're at. Yeah. She uses earth pigment, she said. Is that what it is? It's like powder. Yeah, that's her her paint of choice. It's like a powder. You add water, you shake it. That's primarily what she uses. She also uses leather paint, she was saying. So she will use leather paint as well on her hides. I think one of the things she talked about, and actually we can say this of almost all the artists that I talked to, let me think, except for the younger ones. But most of the older artists, Lakota artists, I've talked to are self-taught. So she said she's self-taught. And she said sometimes it's difficult carrying on conversations, maybe with visitors or artists who have received formal training, because they use a kind of language and vocabulary that she doesn't know. So she said one time someone asked her what her medium was. She had no idea what they were talking about. Of course, I think she learns some of that vocabulary as she goes. But really, what I found in talking to her, and I'll share this in just a minute, is while she does not have the same vocabulary and has no so-called formal training, she thinks in ways that are definitely, she thinks as an artist, and she has some really deep sort of, I would say, philosophies or ways of working that guide her practice. And there was some overlap. I understood a lot of things she was saying in terms of my own practice as a poet. And so here we go. This was one of the cool things she was sharing. So this is way back in the, as I said, back in the store. She just has this little tiny space. She has that space. She also works at home. So that space is where she works on her smaller hides. At home, she works on the big buffalo hides. But she said, so this is where she puts her hide on a little ice cooler. And so she said she likes to work with her hide below her. She likes to have it down and to be able to lean over it. And she puts her lamp. But she was saying she likes to have that posture, that positioning, because it allows her to focus on the piece, and there's a kind of energy and a concentration and a relationship that is developed with the piece when she's able to just center all of her energy and her vision downward between her and that piece. She said, what happens then is, as she's painting, when she is finished with the piece and gets up to leave, she said she has recognized over time that it's almost like that's another person that is there working. There is a Sonya that is there working, and there's a Sonya that conducts other things in ordinary life. And that was a moment that I really related to. As a writer, for example, I work late at night. So we have all of us who are artists, you may have a certain position, you may have certain materials, or you may have certain places or times of day that where you can be that person that needs to create or make. So at nighttime, for example, is when I am the Layli that can write and make things. For her, it was with her cooler. Or she said at home, it's on her table. She has a large table with the buffalo hides. And so she said in that regard, she understands why long ago, some of our elders, they would refer to themselves in the third person. So she understands now at this age and after doing this for many years, she said now she understands how or why some of our elders would refer to themselves that way, because there are times that we are a different self. There are different selves, different parts of ourselves. So I thought that was really beautiful. Here's just a detail in the hide. So going back to materials, and this was funny to learn this from the elders. I found that both of the elders expressed, they both, at least Sonya for sure, she said she really preferred the chemically treated, chemically processed hides. So there's different kinds of processing. There's like a way of tanning and cleaning and tanning the hide that is very old, historical kind of process. But she actually liked the chemically processed ones, she said, because it had a smoother surface. And so the paints and the pigments go on in very smooth lines, which you can kind of see here. The other thing is the older processes, which is like called brain tanned hides. Those brain tanned hides also have a kind of smell. Now, if you're familiar with the smell, it's like, for me, I love it. Like it makes me feel what's the word? Warm. I feel warm and I feel grounded when I smell that. Nonetheless, it has a presence in the room. So when she has buyers, people who want to buy her pieces, they're not always used to that smell of the brain tan hides. So she works with those chemically treated hides. So this is, as you see, that was the center of that. And then this is her... Oops. This is her hide, her most recent one. If you go to Dakota Drum Company and go to their website, you will see she has many, I mean, they're just beautiful. So a piece like this takes her like 3 or 4 months of consistent daily work. So that's months and months of labor and care and attention. One thing I want to say that is the cutest thing. So when she was dropping her knowledge and her philosophy on art making, let me find her words. Hold on. I'm going to find exactly the way she said it. Right? So I can't find it because I can't read my writing. Okay, but I'm going to do it from memory. This is what she told me. So she was like, when you're making something, and I took this to heart and wanted to apply it also to poetry. So she said, when you're making something, the philosophy she has developed over the years is you have to really have a sense of belief in whatever you're making. You have to believe in it, like it's a life of its own. You have to show trust and faith that whatever it's intended to be, like you trust it, right? So as she was talking about this, I was like, I love that, you know. I connect to that, yes. And then later on, she told me something that sort of made me smile, and I was like, oh, maybe this is why she believes that. Or that maybe this is why she developed that philosophy. She was saying, okay, she's been painting over 30 years, but only 10 years ago, so that means she went 20 something years without this. Only 10 years ago, she said she realized that you could use an eraser on the hide. She only realized 10 years ago that you could use an eraser on the hide. So for over 20 years, she was plotting out her designs. But if she made a mistake, she had to live with it. Like, that's crazy. I mean, that's amazing to think of, that all of those years she had to be so careful, and she had to believe. I mean, if you made a mistake, you have to live with it, and you have to believe in what it's meant to be. And in that regard, I really understood. So this is I want to share. We took a little video of her. It's very short, and we'll have to listen closely. But she was talking, and so I took this little video to show my favorite part of her design. And it's she's telling us about her kitty. So she was working on this hide, and her kitty came and walked on it. So we'll see. Hopefully we can hear it, or I don't know. Let's see, here we go.
I told her, I said, get up. You know, I didn't want to beat her up. I was like, go. And then I did that, and then I was working on another color, and then she goes and stands there and then walks away, and I was like, oh God. Yeah, my other cat did that with that green paint, and then I had to go check on her feet, so I had to wash that paint off because it's leather paint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay, well, Sonia, I don't want to keep you. So
All right.
I'll go.
Looks like you're.
Okay, so you can see her store, and it's clearly a very like retail kind of place with drums and different hides and so on. Last but not least, I was gonna say that she uses the ledger style. So the animals with the elongated necks and bodies is something you will recognize a lot from the ledger work in the Northern Plains. And when we get to my dad, I can talk a little bit about some of that too. Those are just a few. It's terrible imagery. I grabbed those from her website, so it was like super tiny pictures, so they're fuzzy. But if you go to her store, you can see some of her other hides that are just really beautiful. And once again, I actually didn't ask her if there was a particular story, but you will see inside her design. We have like the buffalo. We also have the hunters, and they are going around in a chase. So I have a feeling that whatever she was thinking about, it had to do with the hunt. You can see the detail here. Yeah. Okay. Now we're going to look at and I'm going to say I'm sorry ahead of time. I have a little bias when it comes to my dad. So I can't help it because I know him and I know some things. And so I'm going to share some of those things, okay? The one thing I have to say, though, is it's really sweet. It's really nice sometimes to slow down and to ask questions and to take the time to talk to our parents and so on. I had never really slowed down and asked my dad certain things, or asked him just to tell me about his materials and so on. And so it was a really nice, we had a nice visit. And it reminded me of something else. Over the summer, when I was in South Dakota this last summer, for the first time in my life, I slowed down and I started looking around at the plants, the plant life, and I started asking questions. And all of a sudden, this whole world opened up to me. And all my, not all, but some of my relatives, all I had to do was observe and ask. And I looked around and I saw purple cone flowers, echinacea, mint, sage, our grasses, male and female plants, all of them growing abundantly everywhere. And as everybody was sharing this knowledge with me, little pieces here and there, I was like, we have everything we need for healing right here, growing right here. It was crazy. And so I think that that was really what I was thinking about with my dad and some of our other artists, that, you know, these are art practices and imagery sometimes that is very familiar, very common, very ordinary. But inside the ordinary is the extraordinary, is medicine, is healing sometimes. And in our culture, there is a word, we have the word ikje, and ikje means like ordinary, common, or regular, like everyday. And believe it or not, that's considered a virtue in our culture, to be an ordinary person, to be a common person. And that is to say that we do our very best in the world, but we are amongst each other. We're not above, we're not below, we're just regular, right? We can just hang out and talk. So my dad, it was nice to slow down and talk to him about these things that were very maybe common or ordinary to my upbringing. You know, I grew up seeing my dad's work, and just to ask him. So he works differently than Sonya. He works upright. So this is his, what you call it? Easel, or he pins the hide onto that. He's so funny. We went to visit. He lives in a trailer. So one of the rooms is obviously his bedroom, him and his wife. And then the 3 back rooms are his studios. So each room is dedicated to a different medium. So this is his buffalo hide room. And it was empty because he works on commission. So we didn't have any pieces to look at. He makes them and he gets them out the door the same day, you know. These are some medallions he had laying around, and he just had them laying around. But it's only to show you that every now and then on the hides, he will add medallions every now and then or something. And this is no disrespect to whoever made them, but I wasn't that impressed with them. If you look closely at the beadwork, it's very loose and it's all somehow. So I was like, that's good. I'm glad he didn't use them. So, but that's okay, you know. It's just to say he collects all these things and they're laying around. And yeah, God bless the the beadwork or whoever made, I don't know who made them. This guy, that's another, inside the Buffalo Room, he actually did have a canvas painting he was working on, a commission, so he works on commission, so not sure, I can't remember, did he say Ojibwe? Some guy sent him his picture, and then he was painting him in like kind of more traditional setting. And you can see it's in process, like the horse's legs are just outlined right now. But that's the kind of thing he does. If somebody wants, he was working with this guy's photograph, and then he was gonna send that off at some point. Okay, in any case, moving forward, then he took us to his ledger art room. And this is him, so this is where he works on all of his ledger pieces. And he was showing us this book. He said he had like a wealthy client one time who was like a doctor or something. And he bought him 2 books of ledger paper, he went to an auction and got them, and he sent them to him. So he uses these this paper to make some of his. And again, if you're familiar with some of the like Northern Plains work, some of the ledger art, Northern and Southern Plains, I think, you'll recognize pieces that are made like that. Okay. Then he was showing us his little folder. I shouldn't say little, but his folder of names. So he has this folder with a bunch of notes and names of warriors from Little Bighorn. And the reason I took a picture of this, I thought it was really cool and very sweet that I actually sat down and talked to him, Like I should have done this a long time ago, but anyway. Whatever, I'm glad I did it now. You'll see, like, this is just a little alphabetical list. At the top, it starts with the S's, moves downward. So what you'll see over here on the right, on the left, you see the names. And then over here, you see, like, little notes. Like Elk Nation. I don't even know what he wrote here. I'm being nosy. What did he write? Yeah. What is this? Wounded Little Bear. Get Together. Oglala. Dancing Arrow, Oglala, Fear Nothing, Oglala, Born Certain Dates, Fire Thunder, Oglala, 1937. Okay, I don't know what those mean. I don't know what all those notes are. But I asked him, I said, what are all those notes? Or how do you do your research? That's what I asked. I said, how do you do your research? And he said, I just get on the phone and I call our relatives. So he calls his own uncles. He calls his own relatives. And he said then all of those notes are like from conversations. And things, and it's a library in his own head. This is all oral history, all stories, all things that we share amongst each other. And I really smiled when he said that because I said, that's what I do. I said, that's why I call you all the time. He said, yeah, that's how we do it. So it was very affirming all the time. Like, it made me feel good because most of the time I'm shy or I feel embarrassed. I feel like, I should know it, but I need to call and ask. And so that I'm always doing that. And then to find out my dad does that too, then I was like, okay, I guess this is what we do. So... And then you'll see on the left these little stars on the column. And this is just one page of the names. But those stars represent the portraits and the paintings he's done over the years. So some of those figures, he painted them. And he painted their story. And then he puts a little star to remember that he already did that. So that's his little, I keep saying little, I'm sorry, but that's his form of record keeping and documentation, is through those stories. And then you see, this is example. By the way, he doesn't keep any of his artwork. He doesn't document any of it. So I had to go online and I grabbed all these photos from online. But this is an example of some of his ledger art. And then you'll see sometimes down below the piece, he'll write kind of a caption explaining what it is. This is one of my favorite. You see, this is a woman, and I'm assuming, I think this was, I can't remember what the story was, but she's shooting a cavalry guy. I like that. Anyway. This was cool. This one too, down here, this was a portrait of Iron Hail, which I thought that was cool to see because I just wrote this really long essay about Iron Hail. Sometimes there's overlaps in his practice and mine. And I feel like we're getting short on time, so I'm going to try to speed it. You should not have invited me. I'll keep you here all day. I'm so sorry. Okay, here's another one. This is cute. Looks like he made it in 2020. Some little Native children in the classroom. 2020, I happen to know he got COVID and he was not well. So I don't know what he was probably still trying to make a little money, even though he had COVID. What I like is this instructor here is Native, so I don't know what story he was thinking about in his head, but I'm going to say this. During our visit, this last time, me and my kid, we were both there, and this was the first time in my life, like my whole life, that he opened up and he talked a little bit about boarding school. So my brother and I have talked about this with each other. He never really talks about it. And if he does, he'll tell funny stories. He never tells anything serious. So this was the first time that he opened up, and he shared some things that are sort of familiar. For example, he talked about when he first went to school, he was wearing his little moccasins, his beaded moccasins, and he had some items. He said they took his moccasins, they took all his beaded items. He doesn't know what happened to them, but they took all of those things from him, and he said they not only did they cut his hair, but they shaved it. So they shaved all of his hair off as a little guy. Here's a mirror, and I'm just sharing some of this to draw that connection with the buffalo no matter what. Here's a building in Omaha, Nebraska, I think, and it's in one of the one of the windows. They used one of his pieces with the buffalo. I think, can you see it there? It's funny, I always recognize my dad's paintings by the ground. His snow and his grasses, I always know it's him without looking at who the signature is. And then here's another painting with, and I don't know why this one makes me emotional, but one of his paintings with the buffalo and so on. So you just see this recurring over and over, this connection. But here's one of his hides. This is a terrible photo. Again, I had to go on the internet. Oh my God, we have 10 minutes. This is sad. Okay. Here's another hide, again from the internet. But you'll see, you can see embedded, inside that depiction, we know that there's a story. So we have the women at the bottom, we have the cavalry on the top, and we have our camp in the middle. I really don't know what the story is. I had a hard time communicating with my dad when I got pictures from the internet. as an elder, like trying to ask him, and he doesn't know what I'm looking at. I don't know. Anyway, so I couldn't I don't know exactly the story, but anyway, we can see that embedded inside this is a story, and most of the time if you sit down, he has a lot to share, whatever he was thinking about. Same here, you can see, he's really good at doing hunts, like action. I've noticed that over the years. So at the top, there's a hunt, and at the bottom, you see our sacred sites. And I'm not sure what the story is there. We have 10 minutes, so I'm going to go quickly. I need more time, but that's okay. Winter count. Because of time, I'm not going to be able to share everything about winter count, but only to say that you can go home and look it up, okay? And then I bought this cool book this week. I would recommend it. It's very cool. It's a cool way to learn more about what winter counts are. Historically speaking, they're made on all different surfaces. There's cloth, there's buffalo hide, there's even winter counts on paper. But buffalo hide is one form that I really appreciate. So you can see this one. And there's also all different approaches. So some of them, you can see this one looks like a more vertical, vertical way of keeping count. If you don't know what winter count is, our year began with the first snowfall and ended with the first snowfall of the next year. And during that year, an artist would use one symbol or scene to portray one important event from that year. And so they would span many years. So this is Sam Kills2, who is also known as Beads. And he's a Sichangu, a Lakota person. And selfishly, I included Long Soldier winter count. So this is my great-great-grandfather. And he kept a winter count, and this was on cloth. If you look them up online, so they have some of this like translated, what the symbols mean, what happened. So like Akichila Wampi, so they sang over him with a pipe. That was the beginning, that was the first year, and so on. So this one spans from 1798 until 1903. Right, so we know that it was passed down. Right, so we have a keeper, and their story, and the keeper needs to be there to share the story of what happened. So those things are intertwined. Right, so I don't have time to share about this because I need to talk about the last two artists. But you can look this up online. This is a recent winter count made by Wayne Goodwill in Canada. Look it up and you can see his work. But I'm going to move to Marty and Keith because I love those guys. They're so cool. And this is a recent winter count. This is the first year that our tribe, Oglala Sioux Tribe, Oglala Lakota Tribe, that we had a program. They started an artist laureate program for our nation. So, and they appointed Keith and Marty as the first two artist laureates. So for their project, they decided to make a winter count and kind of revive that tradition, and they wanted to give this to the tribe. So I'm just going to quickly share a little bit about the materials. I interviewed Marty. So we see here now, this is not chemically treated. This is brain tan hide. So you could probably see the difference from the previous hide. It has that warmer, more rich tone to it. He said he didn't have a problem with the surface. The lines came out pretty clean and so on. But he was using leather paint, not earth pigments. So he used leather paint. And he wanted to do more abstract representation, not so much the depictional things like you saw with my dad's, for example. So he chose to, in the center, he's putting our flag sign you saw, Oglala. Here he is it's kind of two things. You see both the buffalo, the bull, and then these two inverted triangles. Long ago, historically, if you saw those markings were most of the time that Oglalas had been there. That was like our thing. So he wanted to use that, and then the three circles represent our vice president, Keith and Marty, as the inaugural artists doing the program. So that's Marty. He's like super tall. And this is our vice president, Alicia Mosso, and then Keith Braveheart. Keith is an incredible artist as well. And this is, I'll just conclude with this, just a few things that Marty shared. So they started this winter count, and they've been taking it around the community to different classrooms or sharing it with young people. Oh, I'm sorry. The one beautiful thing I wanted to share is they had intended to use, they got a buffalo from the tribe, and then they chose a buffalo, and then they butchered it, and then they had a meal for the community, so they fed everybody, and then they intended to use that hide from that buffalo and for this winter count. But they said it didn't work out because the person that was going to help them process the hide, something, I don't know, the schedule or something fell through. So they ended up using this hide, and I'm trying to remember. 1 second. There's a nonprofit called Secret Storm in Rapid City that sells buffalo hides. You might look them up. But young people who have gone through the foster care system, young Lakota people, they are the ones who process these hides. So I thought that was really beautiful. Even though their first plan fell through, I was talking to him and I said, it's so beautiful that our relatives who have gone through that kind of experience, that their hands are a part of this as well, as a part of a kind of inclusion, right? So last but not least, he was saying he has found it takes bravery to create things that use these historical processes. Because he said he has found, and I found this to be true too, this is why I'm so careful talking about our language, our philosophies, is that when he brings some of these pieces into a room with other Lakota people, that maybe their families have done the same thing, their families have had winter counts, or their families process hides, someone always has something to say about it. That's what he said. So he might say some part of his knowledge, and then he'll say, oh, well, they have a different view, or they have different knowledge that they're carrying. So he said, you really, as an artist, you have to be brave, and you have to have courage. And that is one of our essential core values, is standing up and having courage to do certain things. And he said, last but not least, and I really appreciated this. He's like, we don't have royalty in our tribe. So he said, as artists, it's not like somebody comes and puts a crown on you because you come from an artist family, and then you have this crown of knowledge. He said, no, there's no authority for these practices. Like, we're all learning. Sometimes we make new practices. We make our own method, our own way. We listen, we learn as we go. We change and so forth. So he said it's very important to dispel that myth from our minds. There was no, quote, pure. That's why he said there is no pure time in our history, in our practices. We were always changing, always developing, right? But there are some things that resonate, still resonate from long ago. They just come through. So with that, I'd like to conclude. Thank you, and I'm so glad to be a part of this with Duane. Thank you so much.